And then we re-signed to Warner's, but Ted Templeman re-signed us, and he was the hottest producer of the year, and he loved Garibaldi, and Garibaldi had come back in the band a third time. And but then, you know, we went to sign the deal, and Garibaldi got cold feet on the day we signed and said he couldn't do it. And once again, it was because of the addictions. You know, he just couldn't stand watching us do that. And when we signed the record deal, you know, they gave us a bunch of money and we got out of debt, and you know, but Ted Templeman, he couldn't be reached, and it turned out he was, you know, having an affair and had a hole in his nose and liver problems, you know, and he told the record company, "I'm going to let Emilio produce it. I got too many medical problems, and I got problems with my marriage." And they said, "We only signed him because of you," and they dropped us. And to the industry, it looked like these guys are a bunch of losers, and then everything went downhill. Mm. But then we didn't have a record deal until the 90s.
I want to mention for viewers that Ain't Nothing Stopping Us Now did have You Ought to Be Having Fun, which was a nice track.
Yeah, we do that live now, and it always gets a big response. So it was a great record, you know, and it came out good. I never was proud of that production of that song, because the song originally, the hook came from the singer Hubert Tubbs, and we had to let Hubert Tubbs go. Once again, there was a drug thing. He had an acid flashback on stage, and that was it. You know, we couldn't do it anymore. But he came in to see me one day before that, and he goes, "I got an idea for this song." And I go, "What's that?" He goes, "You ought to be having fun. You know, you ought to be having." I was like, "Yeah, that's a winner." He goes, "Yeah, can you help me finish it?" You know, we go, "Yeah," you know, and we finished it. But when I recorded it, he was out of the band, and I had Edward McGee, and I had gone to a Smokey Robinson concert when he had that song, Quiet Storm. And I remember going to the concert. He had these two background singers. One was Melba Joyce, and I forget the name of the other girl, but they sounded like a mellotron. They were so perfect. I couldn't believe it. I said, "I got to have these girls on my record." And I brought them in, and unfortunately, it wasn't the right move. You know, not that they weren't great singers, because they were, but it just made it sound soft. You know, and I always wish, man, I wish I would have just done it the way he's singing in my bedroom that day. You know, a man's voice, "You ought to be having," like 6 men singing that. You know, would have been much more manly and just hard hitting. You know, but I recorded it again with Ellis Hall in the mid-'80s, and I thought the version was better. But even still, for some reason, I had a hard time dealing with the production on that song. I'd like to see somebody else produce it. But, you know, we do it live today, and every time we play it, people are like, "Oh, my God, they're playing that song." So it was a pretty substantial hit.
Yeah, it got a lot of radio play for sure. In Los Angeles, where I was, anyway.
Big time in L.A., yeah.
Yeah. One track I want to mention on that Back on the Streets that I liked a lot, It Takes Two, really funky and kind of atypical in the bass for Tower of Power. It kind of had that plucking sound that you guys didn't usually have. But I like
that's because that's not Rocco.
Yeah.
That's Vito Sanfilippo. And Chester Thompson wrote that song. That's why it's so funky. You know, that's a really cool song, you know. But, you know, Rocco had serious drug problems. I fired him. He was out of the band for 8 years. And then I brought him back in the mid-'80s. And that's really when we sort of got back to sounding the way we're supposed to sound, you know. And that's not to say that Victor Conti and Vito Sanfilippo weren't excellent bass players. They were. But they were sort of, you know, like all the others, whereas Rocco's like no other.
Right. So you bounced back and you came back with your first record in '87 with Power. How did it feel to be back at it?
Well, you know, honestly, I never felt like I was never at it. You know, we were always writing new songs and we'd always perform them live. I had done a recording, a Sheffield Labs direct-to-disc record. And we recorded that album, Power, and nobody wanted it. You know, they labeled us as dinosaurs, and so nobody wanted the record. And that was with Ellis Hall, and, you know, he and I were producing the record, and he was phenomenal. Even to this day, he's one of my favorite singers we ever had, incredible writer. I thought the songs were great. You know, I worked with Ron Pendragon, who was George Massenburg's assistant. And then we had the song Go and Get It With Your Good Credit, and George Massenburg mixed it. And, we had the kind of sound that I was really proud of. And but nobody wanted it, And so this little company in Copenhagen called Genlit Records put it out. And they called it Power. And what happened was there was a guy named Craig Sussman who had an office above the studio where we recorded that record, which was a place called The Complex, George Massenburg's place in LA. And every night he'd come down from his office and he'd hear us in the studio. And he's like, man, it's phenomenal. He loved it, And then I guess, like a year and a half, 2 years later, he's inquiring, like, whatever happened to that record? Somebody that he knew at the Complex. And he said, it never came out. And what happened was we had this guy that we knew that had a lot of money, and he paid for that recording. And when it didn't come out, he took the tapes, and we didn't have them, And then somehow somebody told this guy, Craig Sussman, about him. And Craig started a new record company with this other guy from Warner Brothers, used to be the Warners, and they called it Cypress Records. So I'm out there touring, and I come back, and somebody goes, "Hey, I got your new record." And I'm thinking they're talking about the record in Copenhagen, And I go, "Really?" They go, "Yeah." I go, "What record is that?" They go, "Power." I go, "Power?" I go, "Yeah, Power. I got it. It's on Cypress Records." I was like, "Cypress Records? What's that?" And so we go get the record, and we call these people up, and they're like, "Yeah, well, we bought it from this guy Tim McDonough. He had the masters, and we love it, and we want to do more." We're like, okay, and so the record came out, but that was like a real movie, for that thing to come out.
Yeah, well, I mean, the 80s in general was sort of like a wasteland for so many of the great funk R&B acts of the 70s, and not too many bounced back, especially to the degree that you guys did. I mean, in the 90s, you got right back at it, and you had albums coming out pretty regularly, and they were of high quality. Kudos. That was quite an accomplishment to come back like that.
That's totally because I got sober in 1988. That's the total reason for that. Once I got sober and started living right, and 1 year later, Doc always says, I made the last year of his drinking and using hell, and a year later he got sober, and then we started writing again. What happened is we were at our wit's end. It's almost 1990, and we can't get a record deal, and the guys are frustrated, and it's like, we're going to break up if something doesn't happen. And I remember Michelle Zarin was managing me, and there used to be this guy that came around to see us in New York. His name was Michael Kaplan. And he was a wormy little guy, a little short guy. And he'd come around and he'd go, I want to be in the record business. You're my favorite band. And, always sort of gushing all over us. And, then he'd come around again the next time we come to town. I'm working in the mailroom at Sony, at Columbia, We're like, oh, great, man, And pretty soon he's working his way up, and come to find out, he became an A&R guy. He was like vice president of A&R at Epic Records. And I told Michelle, I go, you know what? I want you to call this guy Michael Kaplan. He always comes and he's always raving about how we're his favorite band. I want you to tell him that if we're really his favorite band, he needs to do something or else his favorite band is not going to be anymore. And she goes, well, where is it? I go, he's Epic Records, vice president of A&R. And she calls the guy up. Well, it turns out he had been sober like 3 years, right? No, 4 years, I think. And he's talking to Michelle, and Michelle says, oh, Emilio is sober now 2 years, and Doc's got a year. And he goes, oh, yeah, well, I'm interested, And so he calls me up, and he says, so what's going on with the band? I go, the band's in great shape. We're playing great. I'm sober. Doc is sober. I've hired people with principles, and they're all really together. I go, the band is doing great. We just need a record deal. He goes, well, do you have songs? I go, yeah, we always have songs. He goes, can you demo them? I go, we've demoed a lot of them. He goes, well, I'm going on vacation. If you send me a cassette, I'll give him a listen and I'll get back to you. So I sent him a cassette, and he goes like to the Virgin Islands for vacation. And he comes back, and he calls me right before, or as soon as he gets back, And he says, yes. Yes, he says, I like this material. I go, yeah, it's good. And he goes, So here's the deal. He says, I can sign you. He says, but I'm not just going to sign you and force people to dig you. I got a plan. And he goes, what I want you to do is I want you to book 7 nights at the Bottom Line in Greenwich Village. And each night, I'm going to bring 5 or 6 people from the company. And I'm going to help them to see what a great band you are. And so he started bringing people down. And what he did was he wrote a memo and he sent it through the whole company. And he said, 10 reasons why you should never sign a band like Tower of Power. Number 1, they're dinosaurs. Number 2, they're drug addicts. Number 3, they're old and can't play anymore. You know, and he makes this list, 10 reasons why. And then the next day, he sends out another memo and he rebuts all of those things, you know. And everybody's like, you know, what's this about? And he goes, come with me tonight. Come with me tonight. Come with me. And so by Saturday, we had already played Monday through Friday. Saturday morning, he calls me up and he says, I want you to get the guys together for lunch. I'm taking you all out to lunch. I go, oh, okay. He goes, yeah, we're celebrating. I go, what are we celebrating? He goes, I'm signing you to a 7-album record deal. And we signed with Epic for a 7-album deal. Michael Kaplan, great guy.
Coming back with a major, no small feat. I mean,
yeah, major.
Wow. Well, you know, credit to him for, you know, breaking the mold.
I'm still in touch with him. You know, he's not with Sony anymore, but he worked my new record. He's a real record guy, man. Really happening guy.
The one record I want to mention specifically from this actually is later in the 2000s, but Great American Songbook. That's one that really stands out.
Great American Soulbook.
Soulbook, I'm sorry. Yeah. So what influenced you to finally do something like that, a project of that type, and how did you get it together?
Well, we didn't want to do it, number one. You know, everybody did that, and we don't chase trends. But we had this manager at the time named Pat Range, really savvy guy, good guy, loved the band. And he said, look, you know, we told him, he said, you know, I think you ought to try a cover album. We said, we don't want to do a cover album. That's, you know, everybody's doing that, you know. He goes, yeah. He goes, but, you know, think about it, man. You guys are the ones that should do it. You're a real soul band, you know. Got all these yo-yos out there doing these, you know, Motown covers and all this stuff. And he goes, you know, we're coming up on 40 years together, and we're going to do a DVD, a live concert. And he says, but I think it'd be great to give them an album that's different. You always give them an album of all originals. He goes, just one album, you know. And he says, what about if I just go to all the major promoters we work with throughout the world, Europe, Japan, and get some comments about that? And it was the same thing. They all said, of all the artists in the world, these are the guys that should do it. And so we sort of reluctantly said, okay. We said, but we're going to start it. And, you know, if it doesn't go well, we're abandoning the project. We're just going to do an all original record. He goes, yeah, he goes, just give it a try. That's all I asked. So we started to do it, you know, and at the time, that's right when Rocco was really having serious health problems with his liver, you know. And it was like pulling teeth, getting him recorded. And so it was a real struggle. And the guys are watching me produce this record and what a struggle it is. But they're not in there every day hearing all the things I'm doing, you know. And I'm adding stuff and fixing stuff. And you know, it's starting to come along. And then we have this meeting on the bus. We're on tour, we're on the bus. And we think we ought to man this project. You know, it's like nobody's into it and blah, blah, blah. I go, wait a minute. I go, I put a lot of work into this thing, man. You guys need to listen to it. You haven't even heard it recently, you know. And they go, well, okay, you know. So I played them the cuts. I had about 9 cuts at that point. And they were stunned. They go, wow, you know, this sounds really good. I go, yeah, it's going to be a good record, man. And then everybody wrapped their head around the project, and we went at it full steam. And we were really proud of that record. It came out good.
It should be. I mean, like you said, a lot of covers just kind of going through the motions, you know, but this thing has that authenticity in it. And also some interesting collaborations. I'm wondering if the label set you up with these people or if you knew them, but just mentioning some of the folks that were on there, Tom Jones, Sam Moore, Joss Stone, Huey Lewis, of course, who you mentioned before, George Duke, you know.
Yeah, you know, we wanted to have guest stars. That was a big thing everybody was doing. We wanted, and nobody wanted to do it, you know. And the record company said they would help, and they didn't do anything. And the manager, Pat, was trying, but he couldn't get nobody. And somehow I got in touch with Joss Stone, and she said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And we did 2 tracks with her. She was phenomenal, phenomenal. She came in, and every take she did was different, and every one was good. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I remember asking her, I said, like, "Where are you from? You know, like Mars or what?" You know, she says, "No, I'm from England." I go, "No, I know that, but I mean, where did you grow up? How did you get so soulful?" She goes, "Actually, because I grew up on a farm." She said, "But my parents always liked to play big band music, and you know, Dinah Washington and Nat King Cole." And I go, "Oh man, she was good, you know." So we got 2 tracks with her, and at the time we were doing a little tour with Tom Jones, and he really dug the band. And I just asked him personally. I said, "Man, you know, we need somebody to guest star on our record. Would you do it?" He said, "Yeah, but scheduling it was really a problem." Finally, we were doing a gig in Vegas, and he was there. And I remember I called, his son was managing him, Mark. And I called Mark. I go, "Man, I see you're in Vegas. You know, we can bring the tracks there." He goes, "Tom doesn't like to record in Vegas because he gets Vegas throat." I said, "We'll record wherever you want." He goes, "Well, where are you at?" I go, we're in LA." He goes, "All right." He goes, we'll come to LA and do it." And he came and he did I Thank You. And then, you know, we're doing I Thank You by Sam and Dave. And I'm thinking to myself, Sam Moore lives right by me in Scottsdale, you know. And I got a number for him, and I called his wife, Joyce Moore, and I said, "You know, we're doing this record, and we're wondering if Sam would come in and sing Mr. Pitiful. It's an Otis Redding song." And she goes, "I bet he would," you know. And next thing I know, man, I remember telling the guys, I spent the whole afternoon with Sam Moore recording Mr. Pitiful. You ain't gonna believe it. You know, the guys were stunned, you know. And then he even guest starred on our DVD when we recorded live at the Fillmore for the 40th anniversary. And then the final one was Huey Lewis. You know, Huey was a friend, and we brought him in, and he did 6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. He burned it down. So that's how it happened.
Well, then from there, I think the next studio record wasn't until your recent success. So why did 10 years kind of almost 10 years elapse again between, you know, projects from the studio?
I don't know, you know, things changed for us. You know, it wasn't like the old days where, you know, we've got a record deal and a huge budget, and you lock out the studio and spend millions of dollars, and nobody thinks about it, you know. And all of a sudden, it's like you got to come up with the money, you know. And not only that, got a 10-piece band that's a working band. Everybody needs to eat, so we gig a lot, you know. So you got to do it between gigs. It's not as though you can go, "Yeah, we're taking 6 months off and making a record." There ain't no 6 months off. You know, these guys need to work all the time. And so it just took a good while. But, you know, as we started inching towards the 50th anniversary, my old manager, Ron Barnett, called me up. You know, we're talking. And he says, "You know, I need to tell you something, man." He goes, this is no time to throw 12 songs together and put them out. Because you need to make the best record of your career. And the only way you do that is the Michael Jackson method. I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Record way more than you need, and then pick the best 12. So I resolved in my mind I was going to cut 25 songs. And I was recording at a studio in Sacramento. This guy was letting us record there for free, you know. And we recorded, I got 18 tracks recorded up there, just basics, you know. But then I was trying to get in when I had 10 days off. I wanted to go in the studio for 4 or 5 days, but he'd have somebody booked in there, and I couldn't get in. So a lot of that was, you know, time to go by. I couldn't get in. But our business manager, Diane Ricci, is married to Joe Vanelli. And Joe Vanelli, of course, is Gino Vanelli's brother and produced all those great Gino Vanelli records and a lot of other records for other artists. And he had sort of put it out there. He goes, "I'd love for you guys to come in and do a couple of tracks. I'll give you, you know, 2 free days." And so, you know, I needed to get in, and I said, "Yeah, well, I'll take advantage of that." So I went in, I did 2 days with him, and it was a whole other ballgame. His studio was really a top-notch studio. And he's an incredible musician, really excellent engineer, super technical savvy, and I just really enjoyed it, and he did too. And then he says, "You guys want to do 2 more?" And we go, "Yeah." So came back, a week later, and we did 2 more, and it was at that point I think I had 21 songs recorded, just basics. That's all, and I knew the project was too big for me. There was no way I was going to reel this thing in. There's too many songs, and I'm working and going in. I got to have a life too, And I was going to the airport. Joe was driving me, and I said, I just felt like God was telling me to ask this guy to help me. And I said, Joe, this is what I'm trying to do, man. I'm trying to make the best record of my career. I'm trying to record 25 songs and pick the best 12. He goes, wow, that's a big project. I go, yeah, I know. I think it's too big for me. Would you help me finish it? Yeah, I'd love to, great. And so I started working with him, and then we kicked it in high gear. And every time I was off, I go there, and we wound up recording actually 28 songs, and they all came out so good that once we got them close to being, they weren't mixed yet, but they were ready to be mixed. We had tapes we could send out with people, and our manager went to this new label, Mac Avenue Records, and they liked all of it, and they said, we want to put it all out now. We said, well, let's wait. Let's just put out 1 record, and then we'll put out the second one. So we have 2 completed records. The one that's out now is Soul Side of Town. We're really proud of it. And then we have another one that's coming out before the year's out. But we recorded it all at once.
Okay, well, that's very exciting news that there's another one coming soon, especially not having to wait 10 years again.
Yeah, no, we're working on the cover right now. They want to put it out by November. I hope we get the package done by then.
Fantastic.
But the record itself is mixed, mastered, sequenced, ready to go.
Well, so Soul Side of Town, I mean, very impressive, just terrific record. I don't know if anyone saw it coming, that Tower of Power would come back at that level with new material. Very impressive. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, Joe Vanelli was just one of the smartest decisions I ever made in my life. He gets it. He gets Tower of Power. He has a super high expectation musically. He got a real great musicality about him. He's really creative, and he's a workhorse. He loves to work. So when we're working, we're getting a lot done, and it's high quality work and extremely creative and really high end technically, And we pulled out every stop you could pull out, and I learned a lot working with him.
And you had a throwback to Oakland Stroke with the beginning and ending, and I'm sure that was a conscious decision.
Yeah, and that's on the next record as well, 2 different versions. We actually have 4 versions of those bookends. And so we put the 2 on this Soul Side of Town, and we have the other 2 on the next record. And they're different.
So in your shows now, how much of the new material are you integrating into your show?
I think we're doing 4 new ones, 4 or 5. Yeah.
And how would you say that the Tower of Power show differs today versus mid-70s?
I wouldn't say a whole lot. I mean, it's a real soul show. That's what it is. People say, what's it like, Tower of Power Live? It's like going to see James Brown or Sly and the Family Stone or Prince. It's a high energy soul show. You should leave emotionally exhausted and physically sweating to the nth degree. It's a really exciting show. And I think that's what we've always been. I mean, we try to bring it live. It's about excitement.
Well, I wanted to ask you also, Emilio, before we part ways, and I appreciate you being so generous with your time for this. What would you say was the most unforgettable, or you can even name 2 if you want, experiences from the road throughout it all? What are 1 or 2 that just stand out in your mind, and why?
Well, I always tell people about the Aretha Franklin concert at the Fillmore West. When she recorded live at the Fillmore, Bill Graham was bringing in Aretha for a weekend at the Fillmore West, and it was like the biggest news in the nation. I mean, all the media was looking at it. Everybody was super excited. And even though at the time we were sort of having a little tiff with Bill, this is the mark of the man. He knew we'd be the best band to open for her. And so he put us on through the whole weekend, you know. And I remember we did the weekend, and we did really good, you know. And they have this insert in the Sunday Chronicle, you know, and it's like a newspaper magazine, and you know, in the middle of the magazine, they had a big review on the Aretha gig, you know, and it's talking about how King Curtis and the Kingpins came out after Tower of Power finished their set, you know, and they started off with Memphis Soul Stew, and even though King Curtis and those Memphis Horns and the band with Bernard Purdie and Cornell Dupree and Chuck Rainey and Billy Preston and Richard T, you know, great musicians. And it says, the Tower of Power had stolen their thunder, you know. And I remember being backstage and everybody was there. So there was, you know, a good sized dressing room there, but it was packed. Everybody and their mother got backstage, you know. And so I was standing in the doorway of the dressing room behind the stage. And here comes Aretha in that really tight white dress that she was wearing. And she had a white turban on. And she's coming, and I could tell she wants to get into the dress. So I turned sideways because I couldn't go in. It was packed. And I turned sideways, and she kind of nudges in, and we're in the doorway, nose to nose. And she goes, Tower of Power, my favorite band. And I just melted, you know. And so that's one of my most favorite memories from back in the day, you know. And as far as, you know, others, the other one I really remember is with the horn section, you know. We played Candlestick Park with the Rolling Stones. And that was a really involved process because Bill Graham wanted us to play with the Rolling Stones. We had done a gig. We were playing some live gigs with Heart. And they had opened for the Rolling Stones in Denver. And Bill said, I want you to bring your horns. And I want you to come to the hotel where Mick and the guys are staying and just be in the hospitality room. And I'm going to bring Mick Jagger down to talk to you. And then you guys are going to get along and you're going to party and he's going to ask you to sit in, you know. We're like, okay. And so we go there and we're all down there and we got this, you know, fully stocked hospitality room and all the finest wines and finest brandies and, you know, foods. And we're all in there and there's a big stereo. And all of a sudden, here comes Bill and Mick Jagger. And he comes in and Bill says, no, this is Top Our Horns, this is Emilio, and this is Doc, and hello, you know. And he goes to the stereo, puts in this cassette, he goes, have you ever heard of Prince? You know, and I go, yeah, well, Prince recorded across the hall from us, his first record, at the record plant in Sausalito. So I knew who he was, you know. I go, yeah, I know Prince, you know. He goes, yeah, it's fabulous, isn't he? You know, and he starts dancing, you know. And as soon as that little intercourse happened between him and I, Bill decides they're getting along. I'm going to tell them to go get their horns. I don't know what possessed them. What are we going to do? Just pull out our horns and start playing? There's no band or nothing. But he goes, hey guys, go get your horns. And we're like, okay. We had them down in the car, you know. And so the crew guy goes to get the horns. And the next thing I know, I see Mick Jagger, he's dancing and he goes dancing backwards out the door. And Bill goes, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. And we're going, what just happened? And he goes, look, I'm trying to fix it so that they invite you to sit in. I can't suggest it to them. They're the Rolling Stones. But if I keep you hanging around, they're going to ask you to sit in because you're the greatest horn section in the world. And I go, okay, you know. And so then he had me go, just me, go to San Diego, go to LA, and then go to San Francisco. And he says, I want you to hang out at the hotel with them. So I'm hanging out, you know, a lot of drugs and Keith Richards, and, you know, they're all there and they're partying and, you know, and I'm just hanging out, you know, doing my thing and nothing happens. And he's like, you haven't said nothing? And I go, no, you know, they don't even acknowledge me. You know, it's like, you know, and so I get up to San Francisco and he tells Mick Jagger, he says, you know, Mick, he goes, You know, don't you get it? I'm trying to get you to ask these guys to sit in with you. They're the greatest horn section in the world. And he goes, well, all right, you know. And so it's all set up. We're going to play with them, and we're going to do Satisfaction, you know. And we're going to play the Otis Redding parts, you know, dun dun da da da, da, you know. And we played that a million times. We knew it, you know, inside out. And we're on our way to go into the Winnebago to run it. And Mick Jagger is running late. And not Mick, Keith Richards is running late. And it turns out that he was jonesing. He was out of dope. He wasn't feeling well. And he comes in and he sees us. And he goes, "What's this?" And Mick goes, "Top our horns. They're going to sit in." He goes, "Not today." You know, and they blow us off. It's off. We're not doing it. And Doc is devastated. And Doc and Keith Richards have sort of started this friendship. And, you know, he liked Doc a lot, Keith did, you know. So later on, Bill Graham goes up to Keith Richards and he goes, "You know what, man? That was so uncool." And he goes, "What?" You know, and he says, "You devastated that poor guy." He goes, "Who?" And he goes, "Doc, the funky doctor, man. He thought he was going to play today and he just blew him off." He goes, "Oh, I didn't mean it." He goes, "They can play tomorrow." Well, the next day, I've had it. I've been hanging out now for, you know, over a week and a half. I'm done. I didn't want to get up. I remember my father-in-law saying, "Aren't you going to go to the stadium? They're playing Oakland or Candlestick Park." And I go, "No, I'm done with those guys." He goes, "Now you better go." And finally convinces me, and I get in a cab and I go there. And when I pull up backstage, Bill Graham's out there. He's going, "Where you been? Get in there. They're rehearsing," you know. And I go in there. And it's Keith Richards with guitar, and he's playing Satisfaction. And he looks at me, he goes, "We're doing Satisfaction." He goes, "The Otis Redding version. Do you know it?" And I go, "Yeah, I think so." You know, so we run it, and so it's all set. We're going to play the encore. So we're up there, and they have a riser for us, and all the mics are set up, and there's a scrim in front of it. And we're waiting for the set to end, and when the set ends, they all come behind the scrim. They're waiting for their encore. And Keith Richards passes out on our riser, and they can't bring him to. And Bill Graham is on top of him. He's beating him in the chest, and he's giving him mouth to mouth. He's shaking him. He's trying, you know. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, "Are you kidding me? After all this, he's going to die now?" You know. And the next thing I know, this guy walks up, and he's got a doctor's bag. And he gets on top of him and shoots him up with something. Keith Richards jumps up in the air and he goes, "Let's rock!" And they went out there and the scrim goes up and we're playing Satisfaction with the Rolling Stones, you know. And we get to the right out and we're doing the right out. And you know, Mick Jagger is loving it. So he's going longer and longer. And Mick Gillette, our trumpet player, takes it up an octave, which makes it way more exciting, you know. And he's turning purple there, trying to hit those high notes over and over and over. And this is making Mick Jagger love it even more. So he's going longer and longer, you know. And we're vamping on this thing, man. The crowd is going crazy. You know, they all know us because it's the Bay Area. And then the thing ends, and Mick Jagger jumps in there. He goes, "Top our horns," you know. And the place just goes, "Ah," you know. And Bill Graham jumps on my back. He's got me, and he's choking me. He goes, "You're the greatest. You're the greatest." It was one of the highest moments of my life, ever, ever, ever.
Wow. What year was that, do you think?
1982. That
Oh,
was a big tour.
it was. That was the Start Me Up tour. I saw the show at the LA Coliseum where Prince was booed off the stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I still have the shirt jersey from that.
No, it wasn't Prince, though. It was, what's his name? Bad to the Bone, the guitar player.
No, he was on it too. It was George Thorogood, Jay Giles.
George
Prince opened, but he was famously booed off the stage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they threw stuff at him.
Yeah, I was busy backstage trying to hang out with them.
Wow. Well, it's hard to top that story, but I want to ask you, you know, what would you say is your favorite TOP track out of them all, and why?
Well, I can't say my favorite, but I can tell you one of my favorites. I got a lot of favorites, but I always mention Only So Much Oil in the Ground. You know, when I recorded it, I thought it was going to be the biggest record of my career. I thought I had the baddest rhythm sections, the baddest tenor solo, the baddest organ solo, the best lyrics, the best vocal, the best backgrounds, you know, just everything, the best horn arrangement. It was exciting. And I remember raving to my manager, this is the best record we've ever made. It's phenomenal, you know. It wasn't even a hit single, you know. But that being said, we've played it ever since, and it becomes more and more pertinent every day because of the energy shortage, you know, the lyric content, and it always goes over great. I just really enjoy playing it. And our new singer, Marcus Scott, burns it down completely, you know. So it's hitting pretty hard these days.
Yeah. Wow. So how are you keeping up the energy, you know, as we advance in our years, and is it getting a little more challenging?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm 68. I'll be 69 in September. I take good care of myself. I've been sober almost 31 years. I eat healthy. I work out.
Congratulations.
I try to get sleep, you know, every night. You know, we sort of got the travel thing down to a science. You know, we stay in nice places. We get nice buses. We get, you know, good cars. You know, so it's difficult. Traveling is more difficult, you know, and it's harder on your body when you're at this age. But, you know, to be real honest, when we're on stage and we're firing on all 10 cylinders, it ain't work, man. It's play.
So I understand you're going to embark on a European leg pretty soon.
We're doing 2, actually. I'm leaving next week for almost 3 weeks of Europe. And we're actually doing Royal Albert Hall. Big gig.
Wow.
With Incognito is the opening act.
Okay.
And then we're going back, I think, in August for a shorter run. England, more festivals. We're doing Montreux Jazz Festival and North Sea Jazz. We're doing a recording with Jacob Collier while we're in London this time. That should be really interesting. He's really great. So yeah, a lot of stuff happening.
Wow. And how can people best keep up with it all things TOP?
You know, we're completely social media'd out. I mean, we have the FaceTime thing, the Twitter thing. We have a great website. Really easy to get in touch with. You want to know what's going on with TOP, all you got to do is turn on your computer or your phone.
Good enough. So before we wind this up, Emilio, any last message to TOP fans?
Thank you. Thank you for a great life.
Well, thank you. On behalf of all of them, much gratitude for all the wonderful music that you've provided to us and continue to put out there.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You too. Thank you so much. Take good care.
All right, man. God bless. Bye-bye.
Hey, back at Truth and Rhythm Central. You certainly ought to have been having fun with that amazing journey and reflections on the legendary Tower of Power. So many great stories. Wow. If you're like me, you'll go back through the band's entire catalog now and listen anew, incorporating perspectives shared from the band's heart and soul. A final thank you again goes out to Mr. Emilio Castillo for so vividly sharing the spectacular TOP story. And as always, again, a special thanks out to you, the viewers and supporters of Truth and Rhythm. Whether you're watching the video through YouTube or funkinstuff.net or listening through iTunes or so many other podcast providers, thank you so much again for your continued support of the show. And as mentioned before, subscribe. If you're not already doing so, subscribe to the Funkin' Stuff channel on YouTube. That's where Truth and Rhythm lives and breathes. And if you love jazz, funk, soul, R&B, all that great stuff, show these musicians that you support and love what they do and that you endorse this show. It's free and it's for you. So what could be better? Speaking of which, write me, email scottg@funkinstuff.net. Let me know what you like, maybe what you don't like so much, who else you'd like to see on the show, just to shoot around the horn about different music things, whatever's on your mind musically speaking, or otherwise drop me a note. I promise you I will respond and do so pretty quickly. With that, for now, as always, you know the drill. Scott, Dr. G. Wolfine here, signing off, saying, keep on vibrating to the rhythm of the one.